Modern rock has no shortage of talented musicians. But there's a reason people still reach for the same albums from 50 years ago. Something was happening in the 1970s that hasn't quite been replicated since, in the studios, on the stages, and in the grooves of the records themselves. These are the top 10 rock songs from the 1970s that put modern bands to shame. Number 10. Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac. By the time Fleetwood Mac sat down to record Rumours in 1976, the band was a study in controlled chaos. Two couples within the group were simultaneously breaking up. Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham had ended their long romantic relationship, and bassist John McVie and keyboardist Christine McVie were heading toward divorce. Drummer Mick Fleetwood's own marriage had also come apart. Yet the record company was telling them that commercial superstardom was within reach, and they had no real option but to stay together and make the album. Lindsey Buckingham wrote Go Your Own Way during a break in touring at a rented house in Florida. He had been struggling to process the end of his relationship with Nicks and sat down one afternoon with an acoustic guitar. The opening line came quickly. The song built fast after that. It was the kind of writing that arrives all at once when the emotion behind it is fresh enough and raw enough to push the pen. The production took nearly 4 months and moved across 3 studios: the Record Plant in Sausalito, Wally Heider Studios in Los Angeles, and Criteria Studios in Miami. None of the instruments were recorded live together. Everything was built through overdubs. Buckingham modeled the drum pattern on the tom fills from the Rolling Stones' Street Fighting Man and spent considerable time coaching Mick Fleetwood on exactly what he needed. When the drum parts finally clicked, the song took off. Stevie Nicks was furious about one specific line that she felt misrepresented her behavior. She demanded Buckingham remove it. He refused. She later said that every time he sang those words on stage, she wanted to confront him right there. Buckingham kept the line through every performance for the rest of his time in the band. Released as a single in December 1976, 6 weeks before the Rumours album itself arrived, it reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 by March 1977. Pre-orders for the album reached 800,000 copies before its release, the largest advance sale in Warner Brothers history at that point. Rumours went on to sell over 40 million copies worldwide and win the Grammy Award for Album of the Year. Number 9. Dream On by Aerosmith. Steven Tyler started writing Dream On when he was around 17 years old, on a Steinway upright piano at his family's lodge in Sunapee, New Hampshire. His father was a Juilliard-trained classical pianist, and Tyler had spent his childhood lying beneath the piano listening to him play. He later said that was where the song's harmonic foundation came from, absorbed through the floor as a small child, before he had any technical understanding of what he was hearing. When Aerosmith came together and began recording their debut album in 1972, Tyler brought the song along. It had been sitting in pieces in his head for nearly 6 years. Getting it onto tape the way he heard it required a keyboard he couldn't afford. The story that circulated within the band was that Tyler found a suitcase of cash outside their Boston apartment, assumed to be drug money, and used it alone, without telling his bandmates, to buy a $2,000 keyboard. When the owners came looking, he played dumb until they gave up and left. Released as a single in June 1973, Dream On peaked at number 59 on the Billboard Hot 100. Columbia Records had released Bruce Springsteen's debut album the same week and had its attention elsewhere. Aerosmith was on the verge of being dropped. In late 1975, their manager persuaded Columbia to reissue the song. It climbed back onto the charts in January 1976 and reached number 6 in April of that year. In 2018, it was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. By late 2023, it had surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify, nearly 50 years after a teenager first played those chords alone on a piano in New Hampshire, with no idea what they would become. Number 8. Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Allen Collins began developing the chord sequence for Freebird around 1970, though the song remained unfinished for years. Vocalist Ronnie Van Zant initially told Collins that the piece had too many chords for him to build a melody around. Then during a rehearsal at the cramped tin-roofed shack the band called the Hell House, Collins played the progression one more time. Van Zant asked him to keep repeating it. Within minutes, Van Zant had the melody, and he stayed late that night writing the words. The opening line came from a conversation between Collins and his girlfriend Kathy, who had asked him during an argument, "If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me?" Collins brought that question directly into the lyric. Lynyrd Skynyrd recorded the definitive version with producer Al Kooper for their debut album in 1973. MCA Records pushed for a shorter version that would work on radio. The band refused. The full album cut ran over 9 minutes, closing with a guitar section that extended further with every live performance, sometimes reaching 14 minutes or longer in concert. Released as a single in November 1974, the song reached number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100. Guitar World has ranked the outro solo among the 10 greatest guitar solos ever recorded. It became the permanent closing number of every Lynyrd Skynyrd concert. After the plane crash in October 1977 that killed Ronnie Van Zant and 2 other members of their party, Ronnie's brother Johnny eventually took over as frontman. For a period, he could not bring himself to sing the words. The band played the song as an instrumental, and the audience supplied Van Zant's vocal. Number 7. Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits. By the summer of 1977, Mark Knopfler had recently quit his position teaching English at a college in Essex and moved into a flat in Deptford, South London, with his brother David and bassist John Ilsley. They could barely cover their bills. The gas would go unpaid some weeks. That is how they ended up called Dire Straits. One evening, Knopfler ducked into a nearly empty pub to get out of the rain and found a small Dixieland band playing in the corner to an audience that numbered in the single digits. The musicians were older men in sweaters, going through their set with quiet dignity. At the end of the night, the singer signed off with complete sincerity. "Good night and thank you. We are the Sultans of Swing." The distance between that name and those surroundings struck Knopfler as both funny and genuinely moving. He walked back to the flat and wrote the song. He had originally composed it on a National Steel guitar and considered it unremarkable. When he bought a 1961 Fender Stratocaster and played the song through it for the first time, it changed entirely. The chord changes rearranged themselves. He later described it as a direct lesson in what the right instrument can do to a piece of music. In July 1977, barely weeks after the band had formed, Dire Straits recorded a 5-song demo at a small 8-track studio in North London. BBC Radio London DJ Charlie Gillett received the tape and put Sultans of Swing into rotation. A bidding war among labels followed. Dire Straits signed with Phonogram and re-recorded the song with producer Muff Winwood in February 1978. The entire debut album cost £12,500 to make. The song missed the UK charts entirely on its first release. In the United States, reissued in January 1979, it reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. A second UK release that April peaked at number 8. Bob Dylan, who saw the band play in Los Angeles, was sufficiently impressed that he invited Knopfler and drummer Pick Withers to play on his next album, Slow Train Coming. The Dire Straits' debut became the best-selling UK debut album since Led Zeppelin. Number 6. Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. By 1974, Bruce Springsteen had 2 albums behind him. Both received serious critical attention and weak sales. Columbia Records had invested in promoting him as a new defining voice in American rock, and both times the records found admirers, but not buyers. The label's patience was running thin. Springsteen understood clearly that if his third album failed commercially, the recording career he had been building since his teens would likely end. The phrase, "born to run," came to him late one night, and he recognized it immediately as both the album's title and its core idea. He began building the record as something deliberately bigger and more cinematic than anything he had attempted, shaped by Phil Spector's production approach, Roy Orbison's sweeping song architecture, and a conviction that the album had to justify itself beyond a doubt. Recording sessions began in January 1974 and stretched across more than a year. 6 months alone were spent on the title track. Multiple versions were recorded, rejected, and rebuilt from scratch. The sessions moved to the record plant in New York after producer Jon Landau suggested the original studio's aging equipment was preventing the record from sounding the way it needed to. On the final day of sessions, Springsteen and saxophonist Clarence Clemons spent 16 hours working note by note on the Jungle Land saxophone solo. When the last tape was cut, the band loaded into a van and drove directly to Providence, Rhode Island to begin a tour. The album was released on August 25, 1975. Within weeks, Springsteen appeared on the covers of both Time and Newsweek in the same week, the first rock musician to do so simultaneously. The title track became his first top 40 hit. The album reached number 3 on the Billboard 200 and has sold over 6 million copies in the years since. Number 5. Hotel California by Eagles. The Eagles had built their reputation as a California country rock band. Close harmonies, open road imagery, a sound that felt effortless. When founding guitarist Bernie Leadon departed in 1975 and was replaced by Joe Walsh, a harder player with a blunter approach, the sound shifted. Hotel California, their 5th studio album, was the first record where that change fully took hold. It was released on December 8, 1976. The title track was written by Don Felder, Don Henley, and Glenn Frey. Felder had been developing a chord sequence at home and brought a demo tape to the band. Henley and Frey took that instrumental foundation and built the narrative around it. Henley later described the song as being about the dark underside of the American dream and the specific texture of excess he and his bandmates had seen and lived during their years in Los Angeles. Released as a single on February 22, 1977, the song entered the Billboard Hot 100 4 days later and reached number 1 on May 7, 1977. The closing guitar passage, a 2-voice interplay between Felder on a double-neck Gibson EDS 1275 and Walsh on a Fender Telecaster, was voted the best guitar solo of all time by readers of Guitarist magazine in 1998. The album has been certified 26 times platinum by the RIAA, making it the best-selling studio album in American history by an American band. Hotel California won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in 1978. Number 4. Baba O'Riley by The Who. Pete Townshend wrote Baba O'Riley for a project called Lifehouse, which was intended as the follow-up to The Who's 1969 rock opera Tommy. In the Lifehouse narrative, a Scottish farmer named Ray would have sung the song at the very beginning, gathering his wife and children to leave their remote farm and travel south to London. The project became too complex to hold together, and Townshend suffered a breakdown trying to complete it. 8 of the Lifehouse songs were salvaged and recorded with producer Glyn Johns. Who's Next was released in August 1971, reached number 1 in the United Kingdom, and opened with Baba O'Riley. The title drew from 2 figures who were central to Townshend's life at the time: Indian spiritual teacher Meher Baba whose philosophy Townshend had followed for years, and American minimalist composer Terry Riley, whose approach to repetitive, cycling keyboard patterns directly influenced how the song was built. Townshend constructed the synthesizer loop at the track's foundation, using Riley's compositional method as a direct model. Drummer Keith Moon later suggested a violin coda, shifting the song's final section away from crashing rock and toward the sound of Irish folk music. In both the United States and United Kingdom, the song was never released as a single. Radio programmers found it on the album and played it constantly anyway. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame named it one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. It appeared in Time's all-time 100 songs list. It never charted. It simply became inescapable. Number 3. Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. The music that became Comfortably Numb originated in 1978 as an unused chord sequence David Gilmour had developed while recording his first solo album. He set it aside without using it, then brought it to the sessions for The Wall, Roger Waters' concept album about a rock star's psychological collapse. Waters had not initially planned to include material Gilmour had written. Producer Bob Ezrin persuaded him to reconsider. Waters wrote the lyrics from a specific memory. On Pink Floyd's 1977 In the Flesh tour, before a show at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, a doctor had injected him with tranquilizers to treat severe stomach cramps. He played the entire concert, unable to feel his hands properly or raise his arms without effort. He later said those were the longest 2 hours of his life. Even after agreeing to collaborate on the song, Waters and Gilmour fought over the arrangement. Waters wanted rich orchestration. Gilmour wanted a harder, leaner sound. Neither gave ground entirely. They resolved it by combining both versions, taking elements from each recording and blending them into a single track. Gilmour built the final guitar solo from 5 or 6 individual takes, marking his preferred passages on paper and editing them together, phrase by phrase until the performance moved as one continuous arc. Gilmour later said, "Comfortably Numb was the last time he and Waters were able to work together constructively." By Pink Floyd's next record in 1983, Waters had assumed full creative control of the band. He dissolved Pink Floyd in 1985. In 2005, the original 4 members reunited for a single concert at Live 8 in London. They closed with Comfortably Numb. It was the last time all 4 members of Pink Floyd shared a stage. In a 2006 poll of Planet Rock radio listeners, Gilmour's outro solo was voted the greatest guitar solo ever recorded. Number 2. Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page accumulated the musical ideas for Stairway to Heaven across months of touring and studio work, capturing fragments on a portable cassette recorder. Some elements traced back years, a chord movement from a 1968 session with another band, themes that had resurfaced in earlier Zeppelin recordings. Page assembled these pieces during rehearsals at a remote cottage in Wales and continued refining the composition well into the following year. The full recording was completed in December 1970 at Island Studios in London. Robert Plant wrote the lyrics during sessions at Headley Grange, a former Victorian workhouse in Hampshire, sitting beside a fire while Page worked through the chords. Plant later recalled that his hand moved across the page almost without deliberate thought, as though the words were already waiting to be written. Atlantic Records lobbied to release Stairway to Heaven as a single on 2 separate occasions, in 1972 and again in 1973. Both times, the band's manager Peter Grant refused. The band held that the song belonged in the context of the album, not isolated as a 7-inch disc. Record buyers resolved the question by purchasing Led Zeppelin 4 as though it were the single. By its 20th anniversary in 1991, the song had been played on FM radio over 2,874,000 times. It was added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry in 2023, 8 minutes and 2 seconds long. Never issued as a commercial single in the band's home country, never on any chart. the most requested rock song in FM radio history. Number 1. Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Freddie Mercury had been carrying fragments of this song since his student years at Ealing Art College in the late 1960s. A lyric about a man confessing something terrible to his mother dated back nearly a decade before the recording sessions began. He had referred to the early sketch as the cowboy song. Producer Roy Thomas Baker remembered Mercury playing him the opening ballad section on the piano at Mercury's flat, stopping partway through and announcing, quite calmly, that an opera section would follow. Then he suggested they go to dinner. Recording began on August 24, 1975 at Rockfield Studios in Monmouth, Wales, after 3 weeks of rehearsal at a separate facility in Herefordshire. The sessions lasted 3 weeks, the same length of time most bands of that era spent recording an entire album. Mercury, Brian May, and Roger Taylor sang their vocal parts for 10 to 12 hours a day, generating over 180 separate overdubs. The tape holding the opera section was played back and forth so many times, it became nearly transparent, approaching its physical limit. At the time of its release, the song was widely reported to be the most expensive single ever made. Queen's record company, EMI, did not want to release it. At nearly 6 minutes, it was well beyond the length commercial radio stations considered practical. The band refused to back down. A copy made its way to DJ Kenny Everett at Capital Radio in London, who played it 14 times over a single weekend before the song was officially available. Listeners appeared at record shops the following Monday, asking for copies that were not yet on shelves. Released on October 31, 1975, Bohemian Rhapsody reached number 1 in the United Kingdom by Christmas and stayed there for 9 weeks. It also reached the top of charts in Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and Belgium. 50 years on, these songs are still turning up on playlists, in films, in stadiums and living rooms and car stereos all over the world. The musicians who made them were often in their 20s, working with technology that today seems almost impossibly limited, facing pressures that could have stopped the records before they were finished. Springsteen nearly scrapped Born to Run entirely. Queen's label didn't want to release Bohemian Rhapsody. Stairway to Heaven was never issued as a single. Lynyrd Skynyrd's record label wanted to cut Freebird short. None of them gave an inch. That stubbornness, the refusal to reduce what they had made, is part of why these recordings have lasted. It is also a large part of why they remain so hard to replicate. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.